So if you want to get the most mileage out of a headline and it's something really significant, add it to your email signature, like as seen in Dwell, as seen in the New York Times, like what is going to make the most sense to make sure as many people that you're interacting with can find that clip and see it.
Today, I'm so psyched to have my friend and colleague, Caitlin Copple, on the pod today. So Caitlin is one of the founders of Full Swing PR, along with her friend and our friend of the pod, Holly Conti. So Full Swing is the nation's leading agency for under-recognized founders and leaders of professional service companies scaling 2 million and above. They've helped hundreds of clients earn millions of dollars through smart, effective PR campaigns. And last year in 2024, Full Swing was named among Inc. magazine's fastest growing privately held companies in the Rocky Mountain region. And Caitlin and I were just chatting about the fact that she personally is going for her private pilot's license. And literally before the recording of this podcast in June of 2025, flew from Boise to Bozeman all by her little self. So
well, almost by myself. Yeah. My instructor was there. But yeah, I did all the work.
But still,
yeah.
Take the credit. Take the credit.
Thank you.
So Caitlin does amazing work, and we're going to talk today about the intersection of what she does and what I do and what y'all want to do, which is growing a platform, growing your audience, growing your impact, and eventually getting a book deal. So Caitlin, you help entrepreneurs, leaders, and experts be seen and sought after. And you make a point, you and Holly with your agency make a point of working with Black, Indigenous, people of color, members of the LGBTQIA plus community, and female identifying clients. Like we have a very similar client base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like to say we don't exclude white guys, but like they have to be the right kind of white guys.
They have to come for us. They have to come find us. Yes, that's
exactly.
True.
We don't see.
And we're always happy when they do. You know, it's great. I want us to have a world where everyone feels like they can belong, and it's not just skewed one direction or the other, for sure. So. Unfortunately, we don't live in that world right now. So that's why we focus on who we do. Yeah.
I was going to say, because that's like been a hot topic in the publishing industry of like, white men aren't getting book deals anymore. So why has that been your focus to work with? Yeah, it's not true. But why has that been your focus to work with BIPOC, LGBTQIA, quote unquote, marginalized folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably goes back to just my personal story. I started the company in 2019. Holly joined as an employee in 2020 and then became part owner in 2021. And now we're 50-50 and super happy about it. I would say, so much of my career was spent working in progressive politics on the communication side, working with nonprofits, working with LGBTQ philanthropy, that it was always really important to me to change whose story counts, whether that's working at one of my previous places or doing what I'm doing now. I think around the time that Full Swing was getting off the ground and doing well, I heard the stat that only 2% of women-owned businesses scale, and they don't really even count queer people who own businesses, right? So it really was motivating to me to do that thing, and get to $1 million, which we did in less than 4 years. And we also made the Inc. list again this year in 2025, which is really exciting. So 2 years in a row. So we practice what we preach, but I think more than ever, it's about changing who has money and power in our world and who gets to be seen as an author or as a CEO, and who gets to have sort of that freedom of life that you can decide at age 41 that you want to become a private pilot. Like that's not something that was ever modeled to me, and I think wasn't modeled for most people that we work with. And so I think it's exciting to be part of changing whose story counts.
I love that so much. So I want to talk about your rocket ship retainer, which is one of your coolest offers at Full Swing, because I think it's really different. I've met a lot of publicists. I've worked with a lot of publicists. One of my best girlfriends is a publicist at Simon & Schuster and has been for many years. And what you're offering in the retainer and in a lot of your services is very different than what most publicists and PR agencies do. So you offer both a publicity strategy to those clients and digital marketing, like social media and email marketing. So why do you think it's so important to do both? And why do you structure your best offer around that?
I think we have focused on publicity that packs your pipeline. Like we want people to take an action, whether that's sign up for your email list, buy a book on pre-order, sign a petition, because we've also done a fair amount of advocacy work. I think it's just really important that publicity actually leads to something meaningful. Otherwise, it's just like ego in the ether, right? It doesn't actually matter to your bottom line. And I think for me personally, like what lights me up about helping people step into their visibility is really around impact. And I just think that you can't have a full impact in the world if nobody knows who you are, right? And as I was saying earlier, you can't be what you can't see. And so while it can feel scary to step outside of our comfort zones and become more visible in our respective industries, it's also sort of the only way to show people what's possible. And I think that's really important and honestly part of servant leadership. Like it's really not about ego for the folks that we work with. I think it really is about impact. And if folks are interested in truly building the kind of platform that allows them to make big change or run for office one day or launch a foundation or write multiple books or whatever they want to do, it's like you've got to build that foundation of a public presence.
I completely agree. And I think it's something that's different about what you do comparative to other agencies and other publicists, because I had a client who worked with a publicist because she needed to grow her platform. And she booked a ton of media, but none of it was super directed and none of it was able, this is her fault, not the publicist's fault.
Yeah.
None of it was really able to capture, it wasn't around a united message, and it wasn't really able to capture anything in her back end. It just was sort of a bunch of random, blogs and some very, big household name places that didn't actually really capture anything for her. It was just like kind of a bio ad.
The way that we think about it is every business should have a sales funnel, right? You have one, I have one. We know what that looks like, right? And PR is seen as the top. It's seen as brand awareness. And what we're building with clients now through Rocket Ship Retainer and through a new offer that hopefully will be live by the time this comes out, we are also building a visibility funnel that complements that sales funnel. Because if you think about it, every level of your sales journey, you do need to be showing up in some way. It's just what that looks like looks different depending on what your goals are. And again, what action you want your audience to take. So I think it is really important, like before you spend a bunch of money on a publicist, whether it's us or someone else, it's really important to have those business fundamentals down and really know who your target audience is and what action you want them to take. And to also have the receipts, like have that track record of proven results and testimonials and social proof that's really important to opening doors to help you get booked on podcasts, etc.
So in terms of prerequisites, I'm thinking of people who need to build their audience and platform. So what would you say would be the prerequisites there?
So I think if a client comes to us, they need to have a website, they need to have a transformative product or service, and they need to have some social proof that it works, right? I said it's a transformative product or service, but that doesn't mean just because you think it is, right? Like it actually does work.
Yes. Yeah. Like I get that so often. You have no idea how many people come to me and they're like, this is transformative. It changed my life. And I was like, great. Who else's life did it change? And it's literally cricket. But when is a good time for someone to consider adding publicity to their stack? Like, what would you say are like, if there were prerequisites to hiring you or someone like you, what would you say like has to be built out?
I would say if you are an aspiring author and you're serious, which I'm sure you are if you're listening to this podcast, you need to be starting to interview different PR firms or freelancers a year in advance of your intended launch date. I think you can start sooner than that, and it would behoove you to start sooner than that, because part of, especially if you're going after one of the big 5 publishers, what's going to get you a book deal is exactly what Meghan teaches, which is that you need to have a big list, right? You need to have a big social following, email list, etc., that is going to convey some amount of authority and trust with that publisher to make them bet on you, essentially, right? So if you have all of those things, you have a good likelihood of getting a book deal. I still think it's wise to get a publicist to support, the in-house publicist that your publisher might have at least 6 months in advance. So we have a client right now who is a Hachette author who just launched her first book, and she started with us 6 months in advance of her launch. And she just, because she wanted it to be that much more successful. And it's not to say that the book publicists are not good. They are very good, but they have a lot of priorities. And I think that's another consideration, is how much are you likely to be prioritized by your publisher, and can squirreling away a budget to hire out your own to maybe put some fire under your publicist that comes with your publisher can only do good, can only help you get the most out of this investment of time and resources that you've made in your book. And I think you have to have some consistency around how you intend to show up in the world. I think you have to have a sense of what your industry is about and how you're different. You have to have some semblance of positioning. We are by no means a branding firm, but I think PR positioning is a bit different and sometimes adjacent, right, to that bigger branding work that a creative agency might do. And I think clients, come to us because they either have a messaging problem, which is a positioning problem, or an audience problem, which is, the reach. They're not connecting. And often those two problems are related, right? And so I think the third problem I would add is that you are showing up, but you're not seeing business results from it. So that could be like an issue with your target audience, maybe being off, or your offer not matching your target audience. So I think about the way that we work that's valuable to clients is that we are truly a thought partner. We're doing the execution of the thing that you want, but we're also peers, and that we are going to care as much about your business as you do and walk with you on this journey to make sure that you see bottom line results from your PR.
I love that. And that's such a different thing, because normally when you hire PR people, they can't guarantee anything, right? Because it's kind of like what we do. I can't guarantee results. All I can say is like, hey, here's past performance. Because I can't guarantee that this third party, whether that's a literary agent, whether that's an editor, is going to say yes. All I can say is like, hey, in the past I've said yes. So you're kind of betting on my brain and my hunches and like the 20 years of experience I have. Same thing with you, right?
Yeah.
Like you probably look at someone and say, hey, do I think I could reasonably get this person the PR exposure they want?
Yeah. And we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that when you are pitching, that you're having the highest likelihood of success. And I think the other thing that not every agency is necessarily paying attention to is the impact of how our media landscape has changed so much. So some of our clients see their biggest results, like 6-figure deals signed right after a podcast appearance. And it's a podcast none of y'all have ever heard of, and who cares? Because like, get that bag. Like that's because that's like what lights me up, right? It's like, it's not necessarily about like landing the biggest placement ever. I mean, is it cool to be in the New York Times? Yes, absolutely. And if you want to do that, by all means, but don't sleep on the creator newsletters or podcasts or strategic partnerships even that could bring more of the right people into your world. So
yes,
you can
100%.
Sell the thing and make the money and make more change, right?
Yeah, we see that just with guests like you, right? We see a huge jump in the guest podcast, not because the podcast is better than my solo episodes. Y'all can disagree if you want, send me an email about it. But like, I think that in general, like, it's just because you're sharing, our guests are going to share. And so then it becomes this like network effect. So what can PR, you've touched on it a little bit, but what can PR really do for entrepreneurs? Like what results have you seen for your clients?
I think clarity and confidence maybe don't sound as sexy as like bottom line results. I like to think we can do all three. I would be hard pressed to find any client that we've worked with that hasn't had the opportunity to make exponentially more money, having had the experience of working with us, especially those that work with us for a year or more, which is 80% of our clients through this rocket ship retainer. But I think that clarity and confidence sometimes seem like softer metrics, right? And so I think of our clients who went from having 1 discovery call a week to having 10, someone who went from having 20 inbound leads to having 50, right? Those are the kinds of like, filling out your contact form or downloading a lead magnet. If you're a small business, that can make a huge difference, especially if what you are selling is like a 6-figure, you're selling architecture services, or you're selling legal services or financial or learning and development, that sort of thing, right? Those are big, big numbers for the folks that we tend to work with. So what's most rewarding for me is to see people feel like they have a healthier sales pipeline as a result of doing strategic visibility with us.
I love that. And what are the limitations of PR that maybe you have to have a heart to heart with your clients, or maybe potential clients that you say no to
Yeah.
because their dreams are so out of line with like what reality is?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that probably the biggest one is that they don't have their operations in order. I think business operations is certainly not my zone of genius, but it was the first thing I hired out, right? And everyone should be like that, I think, especially if you do fit the mold of a more traditional, visionary entrepreneur. You're not necessarily going to be good at the details, and the more that you're able to like fly free in your visionary space, the less you're going to care about those details. But somebody's got to care, right? That's the nuts and bolts of your business. And so to me, I think the clients that have the most dialed operations do the best and get the most out of PR because they're using us effectively. They're responding promptly. Like we send a rapid response opportunity and they're on it, or someone's on it, right? It gets funneled to the right person. So.
Yep. No, ops is a whole thing. I have 2 people on ops and admin, and I was like, this is the best thing in the world. It's like, I don't have to do anything. And I even am
then
like,
you just get to show up and shine, that's
well,
like,
that, and I'm even like, put it on the agenda for next week. So I'm not going to remember it. So
totally.
like everything gets handled at a certain point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
awesome.
I think our clients do really appreciate that about us. Like we send a weekly roll up at the beginning of the week that kind of tells them the status of everything, what we need, what's getting going. We're on Slack channels. I'm not, but like our project managers are on Slack channels with clients. Sometimes I am, but I'm not very active, right? But we have like people feel like their businesses learn from the way that we run our operations, which is no credit to me, but good for my team. They're great.
It means you hired effectively, though, which is so important to learn how to hire effectively, including contractors like publicists, including contractors like your book proposal girl, all those sort of things, like hiring those people. Our social media strategist has worked for me for 5 years. She's still a contractor. She runs her own business, and it's like, it's great. Mm-hmm. But like that, hiring that role is just as important as hiring employees. Okay. So the people listening to this are entrepreneurs who want a book deal, but who definitely need often to grow their audience and their business first. As an entrepreneur yourself, we've known each other for several years. I've known you since you were a 6-figure entrepreneur. Now you were a multiple 7-figure entrepreneur, which is congratulations. Thanks. As a founder, as a creator, as an entrepreneur yourself, what's your best advice from your own journey about how to grow your business and your audience from the ground up?
I think so much of it is about habits. I think biting off consistent visibility habits that you can commit to and honor that agreement that you've made to yourself and your brand over time, and then just keep showing up every day. Like, I know I'm a vastly different human if I don't get a workout in. Working out is as much for my mental health as for my vanity, for my hot jeans or whatever.
Stay hot, yeah.
But like for the hotness level, but like it's really important, right? And whatever those look like for you, whether that's making sure that you have someone on your team pull a list of podcasts that are best fit, or maybe you are able to pay a publicist just to do that. And you commit that twice a week, no matter what, you're going to get 2 pitches out. Like anyone can do that. I really believe and if you never hear back from any one of them, okay, give me a call or DM me. But I think in general, if you have something to say and you're a qualified expert and you send 2 pitches a week, you will see results. And you can do that. And especially now using AI to draft it for you, I would not recommend cutting and pasting what ChatGPT says into an email. But I think if you're not a writer and you feel intimidated by that, like upload your bio or the copy on your website, upload the stuff that is the about section of the podcast you want to appear on, and at least get a draft that way. There's really no excuse to get in your own way anymore, people. Just do it consistently over time. And then 6 years later, you'll find yourself having a 7-figure business. And that's great.
I love that though, because it's so simple. People want all the hacks and they want all the shortcuts and they want the quick virality. And it's like, actually, no, the people that we have in our roster that are the most successful and have the biggest followings, they just are grinding, right? They're just consistent. I don't even want to call it a grind.
Grinding, right?
It's not even grinding. It's just like, it's just consistent. I think they find joy in the work. And so then it becomes its own reward in a way, right?
And how much can you repurpose your content that you're doing anyway, right? Like if you're posting
Yeah.
regularly on LinkedIn or Instagram, or if you have a course or you had a course a billion years ago that you sunsetted but still has some great content, like you can use all of that to help you think about topics that you could pitch yourself to different outlets. You could it's really not about working harder or adding another thing. I think it's just about repurposing your content in a way that shows news value. And when I say news value, it's like, why would the audience of this outlet care about what it is you have to say? Because journalists can be a harsh bunch. Like I used to be one, Holly used to be one, and they're not interested in promoting what you have to sell. Like that's not it, right? They're interested in the unique value, fresh perspective that only you can provide because of this years of experience, transformative results. You can weigh in at this particular moment on whatever's happening anyway, half the time, right? Especially if you're pitching more traditional news media, you need to be able to connect the dots of the story and tell people like why what you have to say is newsworthy or is missing from the current news cycle conversation.
Love that. I love that. So for entrepreneurs, when is the right or the best time to hire a publicist or a PR team like yourselves?
I think it's when you can comfortably afford one, because people come to you, and I bet this happens to you, Meghan. They're stressed out about money. And when you're stressed out about money, like it changes the energetics of the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? Like you want to be in a space of spaciousness and like, I'm going to experiment with this. I've got friends who have had a publicist for 6 months or a year and it's transformed their business. I'm going to give it a go for me. And then I think you really take your time and you make sure that whoever you end up hiring is like a vibe fit, right? And that you know that you know what to expect, that they're able to articulate to you on that first call where you're interviewing them and they should be interviewing you. Like, is this going to be a good relationship? I think that part's really important. We have a private podcast that I think we gave you access to, Meghan, but that answers a lot of the questions that people typically have around, are they ready? What should they watch out for? And you might not need a full-blown agency. Like there's a lot of great freelancers out there. And if you're super broke right now, go to your local journalism school, right? Because there's lots of folks in journalism school who are great writers and understand the news media and want to learn PR because they know that journalism is sort of a tricky industry, right? It has been for a while and it's not getting simpler.
Yes.
So, if you could hire an intern for $20 an hour, like everyone wins. And maybe it's 10 hours a week to start, but like start somewhere. Do it yourself, get some help. There's lots of ways that help can look, but there's no reason not to be building,
I love that. I want to circle back to the energetic conversation because I think it's so important.
We're going to get wooey.
I know. I love the woo conversations and I'm here for it. And it's my podcast, so I can be woo if I want. I see that a lot. So I see that a lot in the clients that I have I don't work with clients that have that energy most of the time anymore, but I definitely have in the past where it's been like this grippy, approval-centered external energy. Do you see that in people that come to you? Maybe that you don't work with, or maybe that you do, and like, how does the energy of everything impact the result?
I think it impacts it a lot. I mean, I think you notice it if you've been in a room with a group of people, whether that's a mastermind or group coaching or any type of situation. Like we're all responsible for the energetic state that we bring to any conversation, right? Like if I hadn't had lunch before this podcast interview, I might be a little hangry and not as charming and well-spoken. But no, like, I mean, I really think that all of that stuff adds up, and taking care of yourself and tending to that kind of self-awareness, self-care. And I don't mean like a pedicure. I mean, like, are you doing whatever the work looks like to you to be aware of who you are in the world and how that affects other people. I'm an Enneagram 8. And so sometimes that's lovingly known as an 8-hole. And so I think it's good to really know, what are the way that you're naturally wired to work in the world, and how is that going to rub some people, and what's reasonable for you to do around disclosure of your 8-hole ways or your own work to mitigate that. Right. And to show up in the way that you want to, which is, I think for most people, like kind and compassionate and, thoughtful and a good listener and all of those things that we want to be, even if we're wired to be a bit bossy and domineering. Right.
Yeah, as a bossy bitch myself, I'm here for that. Like I am.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I'm a 6. I don't really do Enneagram. I think I'm an Enneagram 7 or I'm an 8. I don't
Okay.
remember.
Sevens are very fun. That would make sense. My wing is 7. Sevens like love the party and not just like a literal party. Like you just love fun. It's
I
great.
do love fun. Well, I'm also a
Yeah.
6-2 human design, which is like the enigma because
Oh,
it's the role model hermit. So that means like I can
okay.
show up and like blow this away, but then I need
Yeah.
2 hours to like just hermit hole with my dog and not only speak to myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I
What
mean? Like,
I'm a manifesting generator and I think it's like
ooh.
4 or 5. But what is the
I'm a
archetype of yours?
projector. So,
Projector.
like,
Okay.
in my husband's a Manny-Gen, so we're a
Mhm.
very
Manny
good
Jen.
match. We're actually a very good match because
Cool.
Manny-Gen's like, you guys, you know, you generate a bunch of energy. The generators are like, so random side story. I went on this retreat for a
Mhm.
yoga studio that I belong to, called Flight Room. Shout out to Flight Room in Seattle.
Yeah.
But I went down there and the resort we were at in Mexico, they had another yoga retreat happening at the same time. And these people were so into human design. They were like I'm a little woo. They were like all the way woo.
Wow.
I forget what they were called, but it was like something crazy like
Yeah.
Dragon Force, you know. We were just like, it's not Dragon Force, but we were definitely like, we were like, ooh, the Dragon Force people, right? And we ended up talking to them and they were lovely, but they were
Yeah.
super into human design to the point where like I was like, oh, I'm a projector. They're like, oh my they're like, come here, babe. Like, I want to
Oh.
pick up some of your projector energy because I guess and it makes sense when I told them what I do. They were like, oh my God, that's such a projector job. It's basically like,
Wow. Yeah.
I expand your energy with my energy, which makes sense, right? Like, I'm literally putting energy into my client's words to put it out on the page. Like, how cool. But like, Manny Chance, like my husband, y'all can just like think about stuff and then it just happens.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah,
There's definitely some truth there. Yeah, for sure. That's cool.
I love
Thanks
it.
for
It's
sharing. I love all
so,
that stuff. We can talk about astrology. I did astrocartography. Do you know about this? It's like where you're
no,
meant to live and travel. Super interesting. So Holly and I did that for ourselves and our children, as we do.
I do think that is important because I lived somewhere for 5 years and I was like, I just don't feel right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was funny because it happened only after 3 or 4 years. And then all of a sudden I was
Yeah.
like, it was like a day was fine. And the next day I was like, nope, get me the fuck out of here. So
Mhm.
interesting. So circling back to what this podcast is about, because we just
Yes.
went to Tangent Town. Welcome. We're going to come back. We took the exit off the freeway. We're coming back. And that just reminds me to reach out to a friend who's an author who just wrote a book about human design. Erin Claire Jones, who's amazing. But
Ooh.
anyway, so what I was going to talk about in terms of that, I think there is some energetic resonance to when your book deal happens because
Mm.
sometimes everything lines up in the world. We had this happen last year.
Mhm.
This person had a big platform. He has
Mhm.
celebrity connections. The book idea was good. He got agents fighting over him. And
Mm.
then every publisher in town turned him down.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I was like, huh, so interesting, right?
Yeah.
And what happened was, I think it just wasn't aligned. And like, he bothered me about it for a little while and then he like dropped off the face of the earth. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, he figured out it wasn't
Oh.
aligned too. Cause otherwise he'd be back in
Yeah.
my, in my inbox bothering me again. Because there are some things like if platform's a problem or they're like, hey, this book idea isn't like their issue with this particular thing. It says book idea was a little opposite as platform, which it wasn't it's some
Yeah.
kind of bullshit response some publishers give sometimes. But I was like, oh, you could strengthen that if you really
Yeah.
wanted to over a year or two and then we could go back. But a lot of people
Mhm.
don't want to do that, right? They took their shot, they're good.
Mhm.
And so it's just really interesting in terms of that versus when all the stars align and nothing can fucking stop you. And like,
Totally. Yeah.
you defy all logic. And that
Mhm.
people think that's the rule when it's really the exception.
Mhm.
But it is something like that does happen. Like sometimes, vibes just interfere. The universe does what it does. And all of a sudden, there you are.
There you are. But I think you always learn from it, right? Either way. Like even I think back to the VIP day that I did with you, and it was very clarifying and definitely surfaced a lot and gave us a lot of good content ideas. Do I have a book? No, I do not. But do I know way more about like what I would need to do if I wanted to have a book? I certainly do. And I just know more about the process, right? And I think that that's also really good learning. Like we were speaking with a client earlier today, and she was wringing her hands over kind of which publisher to choose and whether to go the hybrid route. And it's kind of like, what do you want this book to do for you? Like it is about that clarity of purpose and alignment. And for some people, they don't need a big 5 publisher. That's not necessarily their journey in life. And I think for others, like it is really important. They want that, and they want it for very good reasons. And I think both are okay. It's just important to know, you know?
No, I think it's totally true. It's an idea of like, do you want to live in a city? Do you want to live in a small town? Do you want to live in a country? Like, where do you want to live? Because it's like, everybody might move to New York, but that could be wrong for you. Everybody might stay in your hometown, and that could be wrong for you. There's so many different things that the more I think about it, and I wouldn't do that VIP to day, which is super interesting. I wouldn't do that today because I'd be like, it's a little too much. Love you. It's a little too much of a stretch, right? It's a little too hard. And I don't want to, I've spent, we used to do VIP days a lot, and I did probably 10 in the year I did it with you. And what was interesting about that is that only one was super effective. And I think that's because only one was truly ready to do the work and had a problem I could solve. Because sometimes I don't have a problem I can solve, right? Sometimes like your trauma is not a problem that good old ghostwriter publishing expert Meghan can solve, right? Like you need to throw
that wasn't my issue, just in case
that was not your issue. No. Your issue was that
like, what did I tell you? No, just kidding.
I think your issue actually was that your expertise doesn't quite fit a book model. Like I think it's the wrong medium for you, not necessarily because it's, I don't know. I think it's more of like the medium versus the actual messaging, or you as a person or as a thought leader at all. But yeah, anyway, the backing up, like a lot of times it is that, right? Like even teaching platform building, the reason that we pivoted to podcasts and education is because I was like, dude, in order for you to change all of this, because I've seen it, you've seen it, we've been in groups together of other entrepreneurs. I was like, I need to throw a business coach at this, a mindset coach at this, and a therapist at this for like 3 years to fix all this shit.
Yeah.
So like me doing it on my own, no.
If you want to change the face of the publishing industry, like you had to back it up, right? Like to the 30,000 foot view, and give people whose stories deserve to be told the tools in bite-sized amounts so that they can build to a place where they're ready to hire your signature service, of actually ghostwriting and pitching a big 5 publisher, right?
And also do my own work so that then I didn't take their shit personally or make it my responsibility or do all those things I might have done in 2018 or 2019, right? So like that's really, really important too when it comes to growth, is that idea. And I'm sure you and Holly have experienced it too, of like when your business expands, you have to expand too. And a lot of people listening to this aren't ready, frankly, to have 10,000 Instagram followers, or to have 25,000 Instagram followers, or to have like 650,000 followers on social media. They're not ready for that mentally, physically, emotionally, even with staff, right?
Their abs aren't ready for that.
No, not at all.
You need to be ready.
You need to be ready. I mean, you also need to have like, one of my clients has security and a bodyguard,
Totally.
Like,
and I think that's increasingly common, and after I post, I do not have anywhere near that number of followers, but I posted that I flew here because I was so excited. I flew from Boise to Bozeman, and did all the work myself. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't have posted that was today, because it's like signaling that I'm out of town, and it's very easy to, find someone's address and all of those things. But I think at any level, like we all probably need to be more thoughtful about some of that stuff.
Right? Agreed. Yes. Okay. So circling back to PR, since we went to Tangent Town again, we're on a freeway to the danger zone. I want to hear like the story of like an absolute wrong time to hire a publicist where it was just like a disaster.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So imagine someone who is really worried about money, who
like really needs their business to work, right?
Yes, yeah, and is doing PR as a Hail Mary. Like they believe that if they just do PR, it will solve their business and they'll suddenly have lots of money. And I think while we say our goal is to deliver publicity that packs your pipeline, ultimately, like you can't use PR to solve your sales problem. It's like you can't put lipstick on a pig, right? You got to make sure that what you're selling is working and that those business fundamentals are there. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think also, like, if you're just not feeling lit up in your business or you're contemplating like a massive life change, you don't want to double down on messaging and visibility for something that's the wrong thing. Like we have a client that's on the verge of changing their name, and we've been able to navigate it because you can focus on the through line, which in this case is like the founder and CEO and her personal brand, which is in some ways going to help with SEO as the name change is unveiled, right? But like you just want to be thoughtful about where you're going, and is PR at this moment additive, or is it something that you don't want to pour gasoline on a fire that you don't want to burn. Right?
Yeah. I talk about that a lot in like VIP days in the past. I would get into, I remember one specifically that I did a few years ago where their pipeline was full. Like they were overwhelmed with leads. And I was like, so now you're telling me that you want to add platform to that, which means you're going to have more people coming down. You're already telling me you're overfull. You're already telling me your team is burned out. Like the last thing you need is to like put more. If you think about sales funnel, right? Like put more in the top. You're already overflowing. It's like adding water to, a cup that's already full. It's just going to overflow and it's not going to work. And she ended up hybrid publishing her book because number one, she's in a niche market, and number two, she didn't really need it. Like it was one of those things where it's like she didn't really need the book, but she just wanted the book, and it's like in that environment, hybrid's perfect.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And if your book is essentially just going to be a lead magnet for the business that you're already, it's not like, for most people, I think you would say this as well, Meghan, you're not building a book to become a revenue stream. Like most people are not. Like books are not money makers by and large. But if you have the right secret sauce, which is partly what you teach, like you can develop your personal brand, your author brand, your book, and have that become a legitimate like business within a business or revenue stream, I think. But that's a small percentage of the people that want to write books or need to write books or do write books, I would say.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a $30 offer at best in hardcover, right? And then maybe a $25 offer, $20 offer in paperback. And that's in terms of earning. When you get to, when we talk about advances, we talk about how the investment in someone like me basically evens out your advance. Maybe you get a little money, but I would tell someone to turn right around and invest that money in someone like you all, right?
Yeah.
Invest in publicity, invest in positioning this in the market, right? And establishing it as the go-to whatever in your niche. But, I have a book coming out, Hidden Profit by Jamie Troll in October. Like she should spend that money on a publicist so that she then, takes a bigger swing at profit first, right?
Yeah.
Like things like that. I mean, I think that's really smart. And then in terms of like, that 15 to $30 offer, you're only making 5-10% of that. So you're making maybe a couple bucks on every sale. Like you're not looking to that book. Yes, it's going to make an impact. And yes, it's going to give you the fancy accolades of saying you're a Random House author or whatever, but it's really short window in terms of writing and publicizing it. Maybe a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, maybe at max, maybe 4 years. If you really have a book that just flies, you could do profit first and you're talking about it 10 years later, but most of the time you're not. And it's like, but that is going to perpetually then be that lead magnet and that driver into your more expensive shit, which is what we want to create, right?
And even an example like Profit First, like that's partly, it becomes a self-sustaining machine because there's a clear business flywheel that's driving it, where like there's the certification, there's so many different arms to that business, and it's so visible in so many different ways that if you're a small business owner in America, you are surrounded by an echo chamber of Profit First messaging, which is not because of a one-off book, right? Like it is an orchestrated effort. And
it is on purpose.
Sometimes what people forget, and you have to have the appetite to be like, okay, I really want to go on this ride. Like, is this adding the book to this flywheel? One, does it even make sense? And two, do I want to go for the ride?
Right, exactly. And
Yeah,
like, am I willing to, just like with you all, have the money to take this risk comfortably
totally.
and not, be putting on credit cards? I have clients that do all sorts of crazy shit,
Mm-hmm.
or they have in the past, right? And it's like, I had a client once who spent, thousands of dollars on his proposal, and he came to me and he said, "Hey, like, I'm going to quit my job." And his job was entire platform.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, that I wouldn't do that. We had that conversation 3 times.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah,
reminded me of like when you have to, like, when you want to convert to Judaism, you have to go talk to the rabbi at
yes,
least 3 times,
yes.
right?
I love that.
And I was like, we had this conversation 3 times. And I
Mm-hmm.
tell you no every time. I'm like, don't do it,
Mm-hmm.
don't do it, don't do it. And then he did it. And he's like, oh, so when are we going to send this proposal out? And I was like, never. Your platform's gone, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I was like, in our in-house, I was like, I just feel bad for his wife. Like, I'm never going
yeah,
to send her an apology or anything, because that's all on him. And she probably knows what she's dealing with. But I was just like, oh man, I'm sorry.
yeah.
But I can't control that.
No.
Okay. Last question for you. So within the publishing industry, we've generally seen traditional media make less of an impact on
Mm-hmm.
everything, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get a feature in the New York Times, it's gone the next day. And that
Mm-hmm.
really has made a negative impact on book sales. Like we see, when
Mm-hmm.
my clients are on the Today Show, there's not much of a jump, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. I assume that's true for any sales of anything,
Mm-hmm.
but you can tell me if I'm wrong.
And I can tell you why. I'll tell you why.
Cool.
And because I don't think it's universally that way. Like, I think back to the way that we got connected was through Rachel Rogers, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
yep.
when she was on Good Morning America, what did she do? But she got the file, right? And she promoted the heck out of it to all the people, myself. I don't regularly watch GMA. I don't know many people that do, except for maybe like my mom, right? Like, not a lot of us are watching like broadcast TV in the morning these days. But she made the most of it. She made an ad out of it. She was shouted from the rooftops on all of her owned and social channels so that you couldn't miss it. And I think that is the piece that often gets lost in why we created this visibility funnel framework, is because people don't think about what they do with it after the headline expires, if you will. So if you want to get the most mileage out of a headline and it's something really significant, add it to your email signature, like as seen in Dwell, as seen in the New York Times. Like, what is going to make the most sense to make sure as many people that you're interacting with can find that clip and see it. I've even seen like Gwyneth Paltrow like screenshotted for Instagram the entire, I think it's Vanity Fair that she was recently profiled
Mm-hmm.
in. And she because not everyone subscribes, like very few people do. Some people maybe get it on Apple News for free because they can see it that way, whatever. But like, she wanted to make sure people could read it so that she got the mileage from that. And I think traditional PR is still worth it, because we all know who Vanity Fair is, right? We might not have read
Right.
it for the past 2 years. That one time in the airport, we picked it up and it was great, right? I always enjoy it if I read Vanity Fair, but I'm not necessarily reading it every week. And so I think that's why it's so important to reach people where they are, and to take those screenshots and put the mastheads on your website, because the credibility of a name like the New York Times or Forbes or Fast Company or Dwell or Architectural Digest, all of these places, that's not going away. At least certainly not in the next 5 years, I would say, right? People have still heard of those things, and those brands still have tremendous audiences. So, being able to share that content on your own platforms, tagging them as appropriate, will just make sure more people see it and hopefully take whatever action from it that you're pushing
I
them to
agree.
take.
I think what I want to like really focus on that you just said is that there's still effort. There's no magic bullet, right? You don't just hire a publicist and then magically you make more money. Or like, you don't just hire a publicist and all of a sudden your platform problems are fixed and you get your
Right.
book deal and your agent or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's this active thing. Like, I think,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I see a ton of like magical thinking by entrepreneurs about books of like, oh, when I get a publisher, I'll just sit back and the money will flow in. And it's like,
Yeah.
bitch, please. No, that's not how it works at all. Like, you are the writer, you are the marketer, you are the positioner, you are the publicist, you are everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a fine line because like I do believe that like we should all try to build lives that have ease in them, right? And I don't subscribe to this model of like working yourself to the bone and burning out and all that. But like I think it goes back to alignment, right? Like if you feel deeply aligned with your why and you feel called to write a book or to hire a publicist because you have this certain impact aligned outcome that you're trying to achieve, then it shouldn't feel like work, right? It should really light you up to do all of these things. And I think if that's not happening, it's a good time to like do some of that work to check in with yourself and see what's maybe not in flow.
I love that. I love that so much because that is really important. Like, I really enjoy these interviews. Like, they go long or we go out to Tangent Town because it's fun, right? I'm just having a chat with my friend about things that we would probably chat about next time you come to Seattle. We'd probably be like, what's your latest fun client story? Or what's the big win? Or what are you guys developing in your business? Like, I would talk about sales funnels for fun, you guys.
Yeah.
That is sort of like my fun conversation now, much to the chagrin of my husband. But like, it is what it is. You know, I think that's really fun. Awesome. So Caitlin, how can people get in touch with you? How can they follow up with you? How can they sign up for your amazing email newsletter and get on that private podcast feed?
Yes. So just go to fullswingpr.com. You'll be prompted to join our newsletter, and our private podcast will probably have to give you the link for the show notes, Meghan, so they can find that.
We'll make sure.
This is so fun.
If this does not show up in the show notes, let me know so I can let my team know so they can put it on the show notes because that's how all this stuff works.
I'll make sure they get it. I feel like this whole process was so organized, which speaks to the operations capabilities of your team, that it's been so long since I filled out all the stuff that I don't actually remember.
Right? That's kind of, but I was like, who's on the podcast this week? When is this going to air? I have no idea.
No one knows. Someone knows, just not us. But thank you so much for the opportunity.
It's in a spreadsheet. Of course, babe. Thanks for tuning into the Kind of Big Book Deal podcast. Want to see where you're at on your book journey? Check out my free quiz at meghanstevenson.com/quiz. That's MEGHANSTEVENSON.com/quiz. See you next time.